Okay. Well, at this time, I can't tell if you can hear me or not, but I want to go ahead and jump into this Facebook Live because I'm going to use it later for my Facebook page, and so you can always come back later and pick this up to listen. I am Laquita Joseph. I am the owner of Copper Penny Coaching, and I do relationship coaching. I help couples turn their failing marriages into flourishing and loving relationships full of appreciation, passion, and understanding. I help them to reboot and to reconnect and to regain the friendship and the fun that they once had in their marriage. So tonight, I wanted to just bring people together, couples together, or individually, but married people, to just talk about quarantine. I know it's being in quarantine has wreaked havoc on everyone's lives. It's kind of took you through a loop. Maybe you've been impacted directly or indirectly, but at any rate, in some shape, form, or fashion, you have experienced something with the COVID that has kind of derailed the way that your life was running prior to this. So tonight, my topic is about surviving quarantine, how to survive quarantine and remain married. So, when I think about quarantine, the first thing that comes to mind is the hoopla in the media about it being a China virus. It's the China virus, as number 45 calls it. So coronavirus, we know and understand that it did start, as far as we understand and know, in China. And so China has been ahead of us in everything in terms of recovering from this and just paving the path for us in terms of how we get through it. So there have been two topics coming out of China regarding the coronavirus. It's one being, they call it the coronavirus baby boom. And the other being, which is funny because, of course, what they think or people say is that because people have been confined to their homes over this period of time, that, if you're married or in a relationship, then, there's nothing else to do but probably make babies. And so they think that there's this big coronavirus baby boom. But in addition to that, there is what is also being coined the post-pandemic divorce boom. And so that to me is really unfortunate and something that is near and dear to my heart as a relationship coach, because I want to help couples to build stronger marriages, flourishing and loving relationships. And I don't want them to end up in divorce as a result of what's happening in their lives as a result of this pandemic. So tonight, we are not going to focus on how to be the coronavirus baby boomers, but maybe that's a topic for a different night, of course, because for me, what I'm doing now is I'm restarting my weekly Facebook Lives. I haven't done videos in a long time. I've been coaching for about 5 years, and so I've done some videos previously, and then I kind of took a hiatus, and so now I'm back to doing some videos. And so I will say that you can send me topics and make comments on my page, on Copper Penny Coaching page here on Facebook. If you have some recommendations or something you would like for me to cover in my weekly Facebook Lives, that would be great. But tonight we're going to focus on the divorce boom, or the potential for the divorce boom. So some couples, not all couples, but some couples are learning to cope. Some couples are learning how to deal with the stresses that come with this whole coronavirus. They are equipped to deal with that. Hey, Yolanda. And they are equipped to deal with these things. I hope you can hear me. Let me know if you can hear me. Say yes or thumbs up. But I'm hoping that that they are more equipped to deal with these stresses. But there are other couples who are not able to deal with, and they may be struggling. These couples may have been struggling even before there was a coronavirus, or we were in quarantine, so, just, being honest about relationships, right? So that there could be struggles beforehand, or maybe there have been struggles created as a result of what's happening with the pandemic. Thank you. I appreciate that. I needed to know that I was being heard. I was having a few technical difficulties earlier. So with that, there are two things that struggling couples deal with. One is that there may be lack of communication, or there are differing values, right? So lack of communication, we know communication is always the number one thing when it comes to any type of relationship, whether you're married or not married. If you cannot communicate, then you're going to struggle in the relationship. So there may be lack of communication, there may be bad communication, there may be no communication. It can, maybe you just don't understand each other. So communication has so many layers to it in terms of understanding each other, especially as spouses and couples when it comes to that. Also, differing values. So if you don't have the same values as your spouse, that is going to be an issue in the relationship. So because what happens is if one person feels strongly about a certain type of value, maybe it's trust, and the other one does not, they don't really consider trust as a big deal or big issue, then there is where conflict is going to come into play. So all sorts of things. That's just one example of a value that could easily derail a relationship. And so now we're talking about, okay, now we're in quarantine. So we start to think about what problems are we facing now that we're in quarantine, in addition to maybe just the normal day-to-day struggles that we have in relationships anyway. So first of all, one, we're stuck together. Right? So you're in quarantine, you're married, right? So you're at home, you're in the house together all day, all night. There are really no real outlets, especially when you can't just get up and go to the gym. You can't just go to a restaurant, just at least in the way that you used to and you're accustomed to, right? The other thing too is annoying habits. Oh my God. This is funny to me because I know in my relationship, me and my husband, there's some annoying habits. I'm sure I annoy him with something. He may not tell me, but I know he does. And he has some things that just annoy the heck out of me. And so I'm just like, oh my God, I need to go somewhere else while he can deal with this right here. And so I'm sure that that's the same case for all of you out there. For you, for your relationship, there's something that gets under your skin when you're dealing with your spouse that could just drive you nuts. And it's magnified right now because you're at home with them all day long. You may not have even noticed it before. Maybe you've just discovered, this because, you're not home all day with them. And so now that you're at home with them all day, then you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this is what they do. This is how they are. It's annoying to me. So, so those are things that just happens. Misalignment with chores, household chores, that could be a big deal because, chores always are like pile up and nobody really wants to do them, but somebody has to, right? That can be taking out trash, doing dishes, cleaning bathrooms. And if you have children involved, you just need a prayer to go along with that, because it can be so overwhelming while in quarantine, because now everyone is in the house all day long and everyone is messing up stuff. I know that's what you think, oh, they messing up everything, they touching everything, all this trash keeps piling up, nobody wants to take it out, who's gonna do that? Or you may be in a relationship where your spouse thinks that a certain person, like they think men and women have certain roles in a relationship, which, in my house, that is not the case, because there are lots of things I probably should be doing that I do not do, so admittedly, but there are a lot of situations where that is the belief that, the woman should do the cooking, the man should take the trash, and all those things, or the woman should be taking care of the children. Well, in this quarantine environment, that is gonna be truly, truly overwhelming. I mean, it's gonna be so much more to do. You don't have school to send the kids off to. You don't have a nanny if you're fortunate to have a nanny to come in and take care of them. In the house, keeping it clean. You may have had somebody to come in to clean your house, at least pick up for you a little bit. And now they can't come in the house and do that. So now somebody has to do it. It's like, who's gonna do it? And then you're upset because if you are the person doing the work, you do not want anybody coming in there messing it up. So, that's going to be a problem. As soon as they do something, you're like, you need to be cleaned up behind yourself. And in many cases, that's your spouse who is the one you're saying you need to clean up behind yourself. I just picked this up. I just cleaned this up. So it's creating stress. These are additional stresses on the relationship. Hey, Megan, I'm so happy to see you. Thank you for supporting me. But yes, then you think about the other thing that's happening during this pandemic is the loss of jobs. So you may be in a household where your spouse has lost their job, they're unemployed, the stress of looking for a job, or the stress of not looking for a job but knowing you need to, because you may be afraid to go out to look for a job. You're afraid of catching the virus, so you're not looking for a job at this point. But you have a household to take care of. This unemployment rate is kind of outrageous. Recently it has come down. So I think last week's unemployment rate was like 1.19 million people applied last week for unemployment. The week before that it was like 1.43. And so, but back in March when this whole pandemic started, they actually, it was like 6 million people applying for unemployment just in a week. That is outrageous number of people, for the U.S. I mean, it's just overwhelming to even think about that many people are really out of work and cannot, trying to find income to be able to provide. So if you're in a relationship and, dealing with that is a big deal. I mean, money in itself is a problem in a relationship. You can easily find yourself in, stressed out about money, how you manage the money, who's managing the money in the relationship, who's spending how much money in the relationship. All those things can just be overwhelming in a relationship. Yes, Yolanda, thank you so much. Yeah, the unemployment is a stressful life event, absolutely. And couples and singles and anyone else is not exempt from that. So it's all the people, and especially partners in relationships, is just really facing this big struggle. The other piece to this in struggling during this time is the illness itself, right? So the coronavirus is a disease. So basically, if you catch this disease or someone in your family catches this disease, they may become ill and need to be cared for. So if you're having to care for someone who is sick through this pandemic, that in itself is overwhelming. It could be you, like think about it. What if it's just you? You're having to tend to yourself because you're having to be quarantined away from your family, right? And so you're trying to go through this and deal with this without your family and be okay. And then they're worried and concerned about you in this process as well. It's just, you just don't know. It's just so many things. And so when you have all these added stresses, one of the biggest things that have come out is that domestic violence cases have increased during this pandemic. So I definitely, if you're someone who's listening and watching and you are in a relationship and you feel like it is domestic violence, I just ask you to go seek help. Call the hotlines and get help. Don't sit back and remain in a situation where you're being abused. And that could be physical abuse, that could be emotional abuse, it could be sexual abuse. All shapes and forms are domestic violence. And it's just really sad to think about the fact that there are some people that are here and in relationships who are sitting at home and dealing with a relationship that is violent to them. And so from a marital coach, relationship coach perspective, I want marriages to work. I want to keep couples together and married couples together. But I am not saying stay in a relationship where there is violence, where you're being violated in any shape, form, or fashion. So if that is the case and that's what's happening, please, 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 please get that help. So, okay, so the big thing today is, we know we have these problems and these things are happening while we're in quarantine, but then what do we do about them, right? How do we solve them or solve those problems or cope with them so that we can get through it? So that's really where we want to take things to. The first thing is in terms of communicate. You have to communicate and you have to be honest in your communication. You have to be honest with each other about how you're feeling. You have to be honest about what you need, because from day to day, you might need something different. Some days you may feel like you have it all together and it's great. But there are other days where you feel like you're so overwhelmed with all of the things that are happening that you just don't know what to do next. And so that's where you have to be honest with each other, honest about what's happening. If you need the, alone time, right? First of all, create a space for yourself to be alone. So if you're both working from home, like my husband and I are both working from home. And then we have a son who's still in the home, who's working from home. So that in itself can be overwhelming. And so we are actually, working from different rooms and different spaces. Sometimes we come together and we're working at each end of the table together. But other times we've kind of figured it out that, some of these meetings, I just need to go to a different room so I can focus. And so I don't have to hear all the chatter and all the conversation, because no matter what's happening, I'm trying to do calls, and if I'm there, they're still having their own personal conversations around me. And it's like, wait a minute, I'm on a call. You can't just talk. So, certain things are happening. So you just really need to create that alone space for yourself so that you can go and do that. Additionally, being alone, creating time to be alone, that time for yourself. Take a walk. Maybe you just need a walk by yourself, because some people do need some time by themselves to, from day to day. There are people who do well with being with each other, and some people require time where they can just be to themselves, that they don't want to be bothered. And so you have to be honest and say that. I need time to myself, schedule it. Allow your spouse to have their time to themselves as well. Say, hey, schedule it. You want to go, or because if you have children at home, maybe both of you can't just abandon the kids unless they're grown like mine, and then you can. But if not, and you have small children, then you need to manage that and be intentional about what you're going to do in that case, right? So take a walk, take a drive. You can always ride around just aimlessly. I'm a country girl. One of the things about being from the country, you see people out, and especially if you're on back roads in the country, they're taking a slow country drive. And sometimes us people that have now moved to the city feel like they are so slow. But for them, that's just relaxing. It's calming for them. It's that time that they have to themselves to just think and just be free. And so maybe that's you, that's something you could do for your relationship. Another thing, be forgiving. So things are not going to be perfect. Your spouse is not going to do everything perfectly. And so you have to be forgiving for that and allow that space, allow them to, be who they are, even though, you may feel like, okay, this wasn't the way that I wanted it to happen, or so on and so forth. But now in quarantine is not the time to be judgmental. Don't judge it. If they did it, they're doing the best that they can. Just believe that and trust that they're trying to do whatever they can to help. And so allow them to help no matter what. Otherwise, you probably have to do it yourself. And that's just being honest. And not to blame each other when things do go wrong. So you're in a pandemic, things are gonna happen, right? So realistically, why blame the other person? You just need to communicate. Back to communication again. Talk about what was wrong, what's happened, where are you in it now, and what can you do to move forward or to do it differently in the future, or how you would like for it to be done in the future. That's where being honest comes into play. Because if you're honest with your spouse and say, well, I really like this, and maybe we can compromise and we can do this XYZ. That is how you're going to save and keep the relationship going strong. Because now the two of you have that understanding of each other, and you can appreciate the differences in each other, right? Because everybody has differences. You're not intended to be the same person. You're two different people who have come together, and you're building a relationship. You have a relationship. You're in a marriage. Maybe it's it's been short term. Maybe it's been long term. Sometimes it don't matter how long you've been married. Things happen. So these are ways to just kind of bridge that together and bring it together. Help each other out. Pick up the slack. I think I mentioned this earlier. It's like if you know that your spouse needs some help, instead of you just waiting for them to just do everything, if you had a capacity to do it and you got the time and you're not really doing anything, why don't you just help them out and do it for them? I tell you, that will go a long way. I'm that way. I would rather somebody just do some stuff for me so I don't have to do it. And that's just being honest. That's how I speak. Like, can you just do it and I don't have to worry about it? And that relieves me of the stress of worrying about the fact that I can't get to it. You understand that? That you worry because you can't do it. Then you worry, because you can't get to it in the first place. So it's like, can you just do that, please? So help them out. That means with your children, with the kids, whether that's taking care of them, whether that's cooking, cleaning, any of those things, whatever they may need, help them out. And then plan time together. To me, this is the big deal, because to me, a relationship and the bond in a relationship is created when you spend time with each other. And that means quality time with each other. So you think about it, when you were dating, you probably spent all this time, you wanted every minute you wanted to spend with that other person. You're on the phone with them, you're on dates with them, and doing all these things. That's what created the bond in the first place. That's going to be the thing that keeps that bond tight in the future. And so you have to be intentional about having time together. So create that time. So even if that means, like, if you have kids and you can't you can't get rid of them, of course, maybe you can, but if you can't, then maybe just doing something simple like playing games or something together as a family, or watching Hulu and Netflix and things together, but being intentional about that time that you're spending with each other. In other cases, you may be able to get away, take a vacation together, because it's still important. And if you're fortunate enough to still be employed, then you probably still have some vacation. And if you have that vacation, use it, because this is the time that you're really going to need it. You need to get away. And so if you can find a place to go that's safe, of course, where you can still quarantine but be with your spouse together and spend some quality time together, that's key. So we've been going, we go down to the beach a little bit, and so even though we don't spend time on the beach, it's just the idea of being able to get away from this current environment and get to a different environment where we can relax and just enjoy watching and seeing what else is going on. It's just a change of scenery. We can do it together. We're not doing anything fancy. You can just sit on a balcony and drink mimosas all day, which is like what I like to do. So you know about me. But to just go out and just really spend time together. Okay? So before I wrap up, I just want to see, I see some people who are out here. I really appreciate the support I've received tonight from, I know I have Yolanda and I have Megan that's out there. Who else is out there? I know there are a couple other folks. I don't, if you can kind of just ping in the comment and just let me know that you're here, I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. I'll pause for a second to give you the opportunity to just say hey to me. And so I can say hey to you. Tiara, hey Tiara. Thank you, sweetie. And is this somebody else? I know there was one other person that I think was out there, but maybe they dropped off already. Actually, I see could be a couple other people that are out there other than Tiara. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, I just want to say, again, hey Demetrius, hey there. How you doing, classmate? So yes, I just want to say again, I'm Laquita Joseph. I'm with Copper Penny Coaching, and I am a relationship coach. I help couples turn their failing marriages into flourishing and loving relationships full of appreciation, passion, and understanding. I help them to reboot and reconnect so they can regain the friendship and the fun that they once had in their marriage. Thank you all so much. Hey, Aunt Deborah, good to see you out there also. And I am so excited to have people join me tonight. And so just in closing, I want to say is in marriages, issues are going to come. They're no different before quarantine and being in quarantine, but they are magnified when you are confined into a space with just two people all day long, and it's just y'all to do that. And so I just thank you all for joining, and I hope you join me again. I will be doing these Facebook Lives weekly on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. So come back and join me. And if you have an idea or a topic that you would like to hear more about, just ping it to me. You can put it in the comments, or you can post it on the Copper Penny Coaching Facebook page, or you can go visit me at www.copperpennycoaching.com, and we can connect, and hopefully I will see you again same time. Thank you. Good night.